Have you ever wondered if fate had a hand in the sinking of the Titanic? You know, that fateful night when the unsinkable ship hit an iceberg, plunged to the bottom of the ocean, and took more than 1,500 souls with her. What if I told you that someone, somewhere, wanted the Titanic to sink and they did everything in their power to make it happen? It sounds like the plot of a movie, but it could be real. And it all started with a secret meeting in a smoke-filled room in New York City in June 1911. A group of powerful bankers met in secret. They were from Morgan Stanley, J.P. Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, and other big banks. Now, why would bankers meet secretly to discuss the shipping industry, you might ask? Well, that's where things get interesting. You see, the Titanic and her sister ship, the Olympic, were owned by the White Star Line. And guess who controlled the White Star Line? None other than J.P. Morgan himself. And those bankers in that smoke-filled room were there to discuss the future of the White Star Line. A future that would include the sinking of the Titanic. Why, you ask? Well, let's follow the money. The Titanic was insured for £145,000. That's a lot of money even today. But back then, it was a king's ransom. And who do you think stood to benefit the most from the sinking of the Titanic? None other than J.P. Morgan and his banker buddies. But wait, there's more. The Titanic wasn't the only ship involved in this sordid tale. Her sister ship, the Olympic, had been damaged in a collision with another ship just months before. And what was the name of that ship? The captain's name was Edward Smith. He was the same captain who was at the helm of the Titanic when it struck that fateful iceberg. Now, here's where things get really weird. Captain Smith had been scheduled to retire at the end of the Titanic's maiden voyage. But he didn't. He died in the sinking of the Titanic, along with more than 1,500 other people. But wait, there's still more. A lifeboat was scheduled for the same day the Titanic sank, but it was canceled for unknown reasons. Could it be that someone, somewhere, didn't want the lifeboat to save the passengers and crew of the Titanic? And what about the passengers? Some of them were some of the richest people in the world, including John Jacob Astor IV, who was worth more than $300 billion today. But he died on the Titanic, along with more than 1,500 other people. But wait, there's still more. John Jacob Astor IV had been scheduled to testify in a case against J.P. Morgan. Could it be that someone, somewhere didn't want that to happen? And then there's the captain's log. It has several entries that have been mysteriously removed. What were they trying to hide? And what about the lifeboat? Who canceled it and why? And why did Captain Smith stay on board the Titanic when he should have retired? This is not an accident. This is not a coincidence. Someone, somewhere wanted the Titanic to sink, and they did everything in their power to make it happen. They switched the Titanic with its damaged sister ship, the Olympic. They bribed officials to look the other way. They spread rumors that the ship was unsinkable to lure passengers aboard. And they eliminated anyone who could have saved the passengers and crew. The motive? Money. The bankers who owned the ship stood to make millions by sinking it. It was the biggest insurance scam of all time. But there's still one question that remains. Why? Why would they sink the Titanic? What did they have to gain by killing more than 1,500 people? Well, that's where things get really dark. You see, the Titanic wasn't just any ship. It was a symbol of America's growing power on the world stage. And there were people who didn't want that. In fact, there was a group of powerful people who would do anything to prevent America from becoming a world power. They were called the Cabal, and they had a secret plan to destroy the Titanic. The Cabal was a group of wealthy bankers and politicians who met in secret to plot the downfall of America. They were led by a man named Jacob Schiff, who was the head of Kuhn, Loeb, and Company. And they had a secret plan to destroy the Titanic. Their plan was simple. They would sink the Titanic and blame it on Germany. That way, America would go to war with Germany and never become a world power. And that's exactly what happened. The Titanic sank, America went to war, and the Cabal won. But there's still one question that remains. How did they sink the Titanic? Well, that's where things get really dark. The Cabal had a secret weapon, a weapon that they used to control the world. It was called the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is a private bank that was created by the Cabal to control the world's supply of money. The Cabal used the Federal Reserve to sink the Titanic. They did it by manipulating the price of gold. When the price of gold dropped, they knew that the Titanic would sink. So they dropped the price of gold, and the Titanic sank. But the Cabal's plan was almost foiled by a man named John Maynard Keynes. Keynes was an economist who saw through the Cabal's plan. He tried to warn the world, but no one listened. And that's how the Cabal won. They sank the Titanic and created the Federal Reserve. And to this day, they control the world. But you don't have to accept that. You can fight back against the Cabal by educating yourself about their plan. And that's where this documentary comes in. I'm the host, and I invite you to join me on a journey to uncover the truth about the Titanic and the Federal Reserve. Together we can expose the Cabal and take back control of our world. Thank you for watching.